When thinking of four cultural identities that I myself use, I would think of culture, sexual orientation, gender, and religion. Of those four, the most important to me is culture. I like to see the different traditions and celebrations within each culture and within each family and how they celebrate it because nobody's going to be the same as me. I think that the least important is sexual orientation. It doesn't matter to me what a person's sexual orientation is. I have a cousin who's gay, and that hasn't deterred me from still being there for her, anything like that. It doesn't mean anything to me, honestly. Um, in my opinion, I do not think that culture is of high importance in this society as at large today. I really feel that the society believes in one general belief, and if you don't conform or fit into that one belief, then there's going to be some huge bias and disrespectfulness from those people. As a societal whole, I really think that sexual orientation is highly frowned upon. If one is different per se, then there's in their sexual orientation, then they really get very much so disrespected in this world. Um, they can't live the way that they want to live in their life. These four cultural identities, culture, sexual orientation, gender, and religion, all have a way in which they work in my classroom as well. For religion, my students, there's always going to be a difference in a wide range of religions in which my students practice. I want my class to have and know and understand the different religions in which each person in each family celebrates because not everybody's the same. And that's the same with culture as well. I want to make sure that my students know that throughout all my lessons, or at least many of my lessons, that culture is of an importance, and they get to see the different kinds of culture in my classroom. Gender, there's going to be girls and boys in your classroom, but I'm not going to have my classroom based upon only girls in a team and only boys in a team. I want to make sure that I have interactions with each child as girls and boys and girls. It's not just going to be like one side and another side. Sexual orientation as well. Everybody's different in their own skin. And I want to make sure that in my classroom, all of my students feel safe and they feel comfortable enough to share what they think, and I want them to be them. I don't want them to have to conform to anything in this society. There are biases associated with the four cultural identities, and I picked two that really stood out to me. One of them was gender. There's a huge bias against gender in today's society. You see it every day when women try and get jobs. Let's say that a woman wants to try and get a firefighter's job. Well, people mainly are going to hire a man to do a firefighter's job because they don't feel that women are capable enough. And another example would be if you have a man and a woman and they have the same degree and they're going for the same job, the company's probably going to hire a man, and if they do, they most likely pay more for that man than that woman would use. Sexual orientation is there's a huge bias in today's society for that. People have their own ways, and if you don't fit or conform into that belief, then others want to try and change you, or they just want to stop talking to you completely. And you can see that every day. Religion can fit into that category as well. A pedagogy, in my opinion, the definition of a pedagogy is the one in which it's your own teaching style. My own pedagogy would be filled with, if I had to choose 5 phrases in which I want my classroom's pedagogy to be, I would choose them with classroom interactions as a whole or a small group. I want my children to work together and build upon each other and scaffold learning from one another. Another would be a hands-on approach. I want the children to do learning through doing, and that's also leading into an interactive approach with others, because if they're hands-on, then they're learning through how they're doing, and then they get to work in groups and they're interacting with others, and they get to build upon others' knowledge and figure it all out. Another would be a community classroom. I want it for a safe place for learners, and I want them to feel safe when they're learning. And then I want to have a classroom that prepares for a lifelong learning approach. I want openness for learning and materials for my students. I want them to know that learning doesn't just stop at that grade level. You continue to learn throughout all your years. And then there is a difference between schooling and education. I believe that schooling is just going through the motions. You're just going to school, you're just going to classes, you're not learning or applying yourself. Education is the interactive, hands-on, applying way in which you're learning as a whole in the classroom environment. And then I believe in making lesson plans that it is very important to have a theory in which you base your lesson plans upon. This sets the goals and achievements in which you want your students to learn. And so if you want like a social interaction theory, you have to make sure that your lesson plan continues into that socialness. You have to plan for your students to be social. It's so important to have a theory whenever you make a lesson plan. And then when we talk about Bloom's levels of taxonomy, there's many levels. The first level is knowledge, and that's really just memory-based. And then knowledge leads to comprehension, and comprehension is the understanding of new materials, which then leads into the application, which is the breaking down and applying. You're doing it, you're learning it through your hands-on approach. And then application leads to analysis, and this is where you're analyzing and examining this information. Analysis leads to synthesis, and synthesis is the conclusion and drawing of everything together in which you learn. And synthesis ultimately leads to evaluation, and that's the defending of your answers, and you're able to back up your reasoning as well.